right, today we're going to analyze the 4 graded stake races that were run across the country yesterday. We're going to start with the Swale, which was the only one-turn race of the 4. 7 furlongs, grade 3, $200,000 at Gulfstream Park. The big favorite is Strike Power. As you can see here, he's the number 6 horse. 7-5 morning line was bet down to 4-5. He's a horse we actually did a closer look on after he won his debut with 102 Beyer speed figure, winning by 8 lengths. We went to Formulator. We'll take a look in Formulator at how horses have performed coming out of that race from a Beyer speed figure standpoint. As you can see here, 3 different horses have run back from this race where Strike Power ran his 102 Beyer speed figure on. It was the 7th race at Gulfstream Park on December 23rd. Thunder's Honor, the horse who was second that day, you see him in italics here. That means he come back and win his next start. He won with a Beyer speed figure that actually was an 82, so he went backwards a point. And the 5th place finisher, Traveling Midas, came back and run a real strong third. He actually competed in a pretty tough maiden special weight race that was run on the Pegasus World Cup card. He improved his figure 21 points. It was a big step forward. And you can see Giant Dilemma, who run a 43 that day, he also come back and showed significant improvement, actually running 27 points faster in his next start. So based on what we see here, just more evidence that 102 figure for Strike Power in his career debut was a legit number. I mean, we talked about it in that video. It was a solid number. You can see here by how horses have performed in subsequent races. It's proven out. Now let's go watch the Swale from yesterday. Okay, Strike Power is the 6th horse. We'll run it. He breaks beautifully there under Saez. You see him in front. The 2 horse in the Lail colors is going to back off here. Strike Power is just, this race couldn't have gone any better for him. I mean, this is just an unpressured lead. You got a superior horse out there on an unpressured lead. You're going to see the first quarter come up. I believe it was 22.95 100, so 22 4/5 on the high end. That's for these kind of horses, that's a pretty reasonable pace. Strike Power, you're expecting a show here. You're expecting this horse, to just pour it on in the stretch and win big. I mean, he's going good right now. There's no reason why he can't win this race, by 8 to 10 lengths based on what he did in his debut. Everyone's being asked. Saez is still confident here. Takes another confident peek back. You see all the riders in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th going to hard rides. Saez is extremely confident still. There he goes to a hand ride. Now, what you see here, Strike Power is not changing leads. He's on the wrong lead, just grinding away here. And this is where you're kind of surprised. You're like, what's going on? Strike Power isn't burying this field. He's on the wrong lead the whole length of the stretch. Doesn't draw off impressively. Now, he wins by 3 lengths, but this wasn't, really, you were expecting him to just terrorize this field. And now you see on the gallop out, he looks like a very tired horse here. Not impressive at all on the gallop out. Here's an illustration here of what we mean by, on the wrong lead. You can see Strike Power here with the left lead. The horses who finished 2nd and 3rd, you can see, they're on the correct lead. I'm not too big on, I guess you would call this like mechanics of horses and how they run. I mean, it's never been an area that I focus too much attention on, but I can tell you that, a horse who's running on the wrong lead, especially, in an elongated one-turn race like 7 furlongs, you're on that left lead the whole way. You're going to get tired, and you can see on the gallop out, Strike. It was even more evident on Twin Spire speed where they follow the gallop out much longer. I mean, Strike Power was just shut it down right after the wire. Horses generally, when they switch leads, they get a little momentum, a little bit of a burst from that. The analogy that people like to use is, think of it as if you've ever been to the airport and you're carrying luggage, and after, you're carrying the luggage and maybe your left hand for so long, it starts to get tired. You switch the luggage to your right hand, and it gets a little easier to carry. You kind of get a little momentum there. So, as far as what it means, strike power not changing leads there, I don't know. Could just be, some horses just don't. Alidar went through all 3 Triple Crown races, never changing leads. It was just, it was just a habit for him. It was just how he runs. Sometimes it can mean there's a little bit of an issue, but to me, this performance was a little disconcerting because I was very high on strike power after his debut. I thought he was going to be, a potential superstar, but after seeing this, let's say I'm less encouraged, especially about the prospects of him going long. Now, there could be something minor there. This is only a second start. Mark Hennig could fix something, or, just the horse being green, it grows up and matures, and none of this is a problem. But based on what I saw here, very, very excited about strike power in his debut. This race, he's still obviously a very talented horse. It takes a talented horse, to win a graded stake race by open lengths and only their second start. But this race leaves me, kind of, not as excited about strike power's long-term prospects, especially as it relates to a race like the Kentucky Derby. Let's just say that. All right, the next race we're going to take a look at here is the Grade 2 Holy Bowl, $350,000 purse. The winner is the number 4 Audible in the WinStar colors, you can see right here. The second place finisher is going to be Free Drop Billy, the 2. It's a Dale Romans horse, and then Tiz Mischief's going to be a distant third in this race. This was a race where, one horse clearly dominated, that being the 4. The 2 was clearly second, and it was a long way back to the third. Big gaps between each horse. The final time was very good. The pace was pretty legit. Let's go watch this race. You can see a very short run into the first turn at Gulfstream here. Position very important. Castellano gets a great break on the 4. He's going to have a good spot going into this turn. You see Jose Ortiz is out there on Money Manipulator, a 30-1 long shot. Horse probably might have been 100-1 if Jose Ortiz wasn't riding it. Castellano gets a good spot, probably much closer to the pace than I expected, but, he didn't have to push and shove too much to get there. But he's, pocketed there in third. You got a 30-1 hopeless leader out there. You got a 50-1 stretch out, putting the pressure on. They're going quick. Castellano's getting after Audible a little bit just to keep his spot here. He's got Free Drop Billy, who was very surprisingly close to the pace, was Free Drop Billy. There's room at the inside for Enticed here, who I believe was the favorite in the race, the Karen McLaughlin horse in the Blue Silks of Godolphin. You see Castellano's in the clear now. Right now, he looks like he's going to win this race. He's coming up to Jose Ortiz now. Free Drop Billy's looks like, he's the only horse that's the danger right here. And you can see this is a match race. Right now you think maybe Free Drop Billy's going to go by, but, these two horses are clearly separating. A veritable match race at this stage. And the New York bred Audible is just going much better here. Castellano straightens him away, and this is that old angle. First time Gulfstream Park for a Todd Pletcher horse, and you get dramatic improvement way more often than not. Tremendous performance by Audible. Hard to see that coming in. I mean, he was a New York bred. He beat a 4-horse field last time in a race that was rained off the grass. The race was rained off the grass in New York, beat a 4-horse field. The race before that, he won a New York bred maiden special weight race. They won a mile and 140. It wasn't the numbers were pretty solid because it was a slow track that day, and horses had come back and run well out of it. But I mean, this was just a gigantic step forward by Audible. Up in class, and he ran by far the best race of his life. But that's that angle for you. It's Todd Pletcher, first time Gulfstream. Gulfstream Park's Pletcher's playground, and you see there with Audible. One thing we're going to take a look at here is Audible's dam. Let me pull up her form from Formulator. This is Blue Devil Belle, who was the dam of Audible, the mother. You could see she competed at Finger Lakes, got beat here for a $4,000 tag. Won at Mountaineer a couple times for a $5,000 tag. She was an honest little sprinter. She won 7 of 20 career starts. Competed at some lesser tracks and some bottom level races. But, you look at Blue Dam Belle, you wouldn't necessarily expect her to be the type of horse to produce a strong Kentucky Derby contender. I mean, you see Gilded Time and Gulch. Gulch won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Gilded Time's best horses are generally sprinters. I mean, this is a sprinter pedigree. They bred her to Into Mischief, and Audible looked so good at the sales. He sold for $500,000. So, when this is your dam, in her first 2 foals, one of them didn't win. The other foal was 1 for 20 with no seconds and thirds, and was running, $5,000 2 life races at Belterra Park, couldn't outrun a goat. So, I mean, there was just no pedigree there for Audible on the, immediate female side. And he sold for $500,000, which tells you, he's probably a pretty special looking individual. But, when I see this, I mean, I don't expect, this horse to be the dam of a Kentucky Derby horse, but, much stranger things than that have happened for sure. But, Audible really stepped it up at Gulfstream, coming from New York bred races, just took a gigantic step forward. His win in the Holy Bull was very impressive. I mean, you have to take him seriously as a Derby horse. Now, he's certainly a strong contender for the Florida Derby, at least. You've seen a lot of these horses at Pletcher's, when they go from Gulfstream to Churchill, they generally disappoint, but that wasn't the case in last year's Derby. So anyway, that's Audible winning the Holy Bowl Stakes. I almost call it the Fountain of Youth, winning the Holy Bowl at Gulfstream Park yesterday. All right, we're on to Aqueduct for the Grade 3 Withers. $250,000 purse. The distance is 1 1/8 miles. We're going 9 furlongs here. 5 horses in the race. 3 of them are trained by Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher strikes out in this race. His 3 horses finished 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The winner is going to be the 4-horse Avery Island in the Dolphin Blue Silks. Firenze Fire, the Champagne winner, is the one who's going to be second. So 4-1-2 is going to be the result of this race. You're going to see a solid early pace. Let's run it.
Avery Island.
All right, so this is on the main track at Aqueduct, which is a 9-furlong track. You see a lot of aggressive tactics, especially on the 5. Look at Junior Alvarado and the 33-1 horse of Pletcher. Really gunned this horse. And Avery Island's getting caught inside of this going into the first turn. So at this stage of the race, the horse that's getting the worst of it unquestionably is Avery Island. He's got a 34-1 long shot of Pletcher's out there right to his outside. And now the rider of Avery Island's got to take a hard hold here. Basically wrestle him off this long shot leader and now angle him out into the clear. He's in a good spot now. You see the one, Firenze Fire, he's actually, tugging pretty hard and he's keyed up inside. So, the early part of the race was not ideal at all for Avery Island. And Firenze Fire, the Champagne winner, for whatever reason, got very keyed up there. The horse that's benefited from all this is the 2-horse back here, Marconi, the $2 million Tappet yearling for Todd Pletcher. He's only run a couple times, and he is just getting a dream trip. I mean, everything that could set up for him is setting up. Avery Island got a good ride there to be wrestled back off this long shot leader. He's in front now. Marconi is just grinding away. He's a horse that, is actually debuted at 9 furlongs. You almost never see a horse make his career debut at 9 furlongs, especially an early 3-year-old. But that's Marconi here, getting a dream setup, dream trip, grinding away, but he's just not good enough. He's a horse that never, run like a couple 77 buyers in his first 2. Avery Island plugging away. Firenze Fire, had he not gotten so keyed up early, might have won this race, but workmanlike win from Avery Island, who deserved it. Firenze Fire, he might be a one-turn horse, Firenze Fire, especially, from what we saw in him, through the first term where he got keyed up all of a sudden. All right, here we can compare the form coming into these 2 races. For first, Avery Island, the Withers winner that we just watched, and Audible, who was the horse we watched, win the Holy Bull at Gulfstream. You can see their numbers really look similar. Avery Island in 83 and in 81. He did it against, graded stakes competition both times. Those are grade 2 stakes. November and December at Aqueduct. Audible, November and December at Aqueduct. His figures are a point higher on both end, 84 and 82. Although he run in a race rained off the turf, you can see by this symbol here, in just a 4-horse field, he coasted home, to win by 10 at 35 cents on a dollar, a huge favorite. There was 14.5 length margin between second and third. So the third place horse in the race got beat 24.25 lengths. So, Audible had been running fast, but this was been running real fast for a New York bred, but this was a big step up for him. Anyway, you could see fairly comparable forms numbers-wise. The big difference is that Avery Island had, been facing at least highly, certainly better competition in those 2 races. You see the $500,000 that they paid for Audible here, a lot of money for a dam, who competed for $4,000 and $5,000 claiming tags, raced at Mountaineer, and hit her first 2 foals. One of them didn't win, and the one that did win, was just a terrible, could barely outrun a goat type of horse. So with Avery Island, you see Street Sense, who won the Kentucky Derby. You see AP Indy on the bottom. There's a little more encouragement pedigree-wise for Avery Island getting distance. But make no mistake, Avery Island deserved to win that race. He ran good, but Audible was by far and away the more impressive performance of these 2 horses. Audible just took a gigantic leap forward, first time Gulfstream Park for Pletcher. You see Pletcher winning 32% there at Gulfstream. He's always owned Gulfstream. He gets horses, to just run their eyes out at Gulfstream for whatever reason. It's just been a track where, Pletcher's playground. So anyway, those are the 2 major East Coast winners yesterday. We have 1 race left. We'll go look at that now. All right, we're on to Santa Anita for the Grade 3 Bob Lewis Stakes. It's going to be going 1 mile and a 16th. The 4 Lombo is going to get loose early. He's going to wire him. The 4 wins this race. The 1 Ayakara is going to finish second. The 3 is going to run third. It's going to be a 4-1-3 result. With that said, let's run the race. You can see Lumbo gets an excellent break there. This is his first try around 2 turns. He showed speed sprinting. Flavion Pratt's sending him to the front. Just a dream scenario going into the first turn. He's loose on an uncontested lead. Statistics show you when you got a 2.5 length lead at the first call, you win 27% of the time, and the ROI is just absolutely gigantic. When Secretariat got beat 3 times in his 3-year-old season, they were all major upsets, and all 3 times it was a horse getting loose a couple lengths at the first call on him and wiring him. So anyway, there's Lombo. Now the field's coming to him a little bit here. Flavien Prat doesn't panic. He lets it out a notch. Now back here, you can see DeSormo on the 1 is making a big inside move, which, you know, you see the chicklets coming here, kind of inside the horses on that Caro. But Lumbo's rolling along on an uncontested lead. The one horse here for DeSormo, first time blinkers, is you know, really catching the eye as the closer to follow in this race. But Lumbo's just accelerating away here. He's never really looked. You see the riders just 3 and 6, 7. They're all under extremely busy rides, and Lumbo is just, you know, Flavien Prat finally goes to the whip. You know, he hadn't even gone to much of a hand ride before that. You can see Ayakara here having to drive inside of horses. This would be a good education for Ayakara. DeSormo going left-hand, riding hard for second here. Lumbo's going to win wire to wire. Pay attention to DeSormo here on the 1. You're going to see him pat this horse. You know, very encouraging. He felt was the 1 horse. You know, he had to make a real long, sustained inside move. You know, certainly Kent DeSormo was encouraged by the way the horse ran, but there was no pressure for Lumbo. He's a horse, he's owned by Mike Lombardi, so that's where the Lumbo comes from. But he got no pressure, did not stop. You know, if he gets hooked, I don't think you'll see anywhere near the performance next time. I think the 1 was the solid horse in this race. You know, just the way you run a good grinding race. He's the kind of horse that could catch a real fast pace, you know, later on and get a piece, you know, maybe a horse for 3rd or 4th in the Santa Anita Derby. There you're going to see DeSormo again, you know, was really encouraged by the way he run, you know, just making that long, sustained inside move. So Lumbo's the winner. He had it all his own way. Dream trip, first time around, 2 turns stretching out. Pressure can burst a pipe, though. He gets hooked early. Don't expect the same performance next time from Lumbo. And before we conclude, here's a look at all 3 of the major graded stake for 3-year-old, the 2-turn winners from yesterday. All 3 of them. Interestingly enough, kind of meaningless but interesting, all 3 of them were saddlecloth number 4. You know, Lumbo, first time around 2 turns. This had been a good angle for Michael Pender, the trainer. 253 ROI going from sprint to route. 495 ROI going 2 sprints to a route. Stretched out, got no pressure, but that's Lumbo. He was beaten 10.5 lengths in his debut by Axeman, who's a Bob Baffert horse that's only run once. You know, very promising debut horse for Baffert. I believe Mike Pegramone's Axeman. That could be a horse to follow later on. But there are your 3 winners from yesterday. Avery Island win the Withers. Audible, extremely impressive in the Holy Bull. And Lumbo won the Bob Lewis.